Hi, everybody. I'm Alyce-Kay Rucklehouse from Threshold of Hineni, the Widow Rucklehouse, and a new ministry that you're going to start hearing about in my videos in the future called Suffering Well. And I'll talk about that a little bit at the end. But I wanted to talk especially to those of you who are suffering today on Christmas, and also to those of you who know somebody who's suffering. I had kind of an interesting experience at church tonight. I was thinking about the Nativity while I was waiting for the Mass to start. And I was just thinking about Jesus. And sometimes when I'm praying about things, I like to imagine myself in a Bible story, just put myself there. And I found myself wondering, what what could I give Jesus? And it was really sad because I couldn't think of anything. And I just feel like right now my life is, I don't know, it's just hard to explain, but I just didn't have anything that I could come up with to give him. And I've thought of some things since then, but at that moment, there was just this feeling of emptiness that I had nothing to give to Jesus. And then this thought came to me, and it was not, it was kind of a weird thought, but it was, I could give him my pain. And I'm wondering, do you have pain that you could give to Jesus? St. Faustina one time was telling Jesus, Lord, I've given you everything. I've given you all that I have. You own every part of me. And he said, no, there's one thing you haven't given me. And she said, but Lord, what? And he said, your misery. You haven't given me your misery. He said that her misery was the one thing that was just hers and didn't belong to anybody else. And he wanted her to bring that to him, especially when she confessed. And so we can see that Jesus has some value for our ministry, for our misery, and for our suffering. We as Catholics do something that I know most of you who are watching this are not Catholic. And so I want to share this with you because this is something that there's no reason why you can't do it, even if you're not Catholic. And that's that we offer up our suffering to Jesus. We unite our suffering with Jesus' suffering. In Philippians, it talks about the fellowship of his suffering. And I'll link the verses below for the things that I'm talking about. It also talks in Colossians and in First Corinthians about, and Second Corinthians too, about Jesus' suffering and how we can share that with him, how we are supposed to share that with him. In fact, I think that we must share his suffering with him. And when we do that, when we offer that up, and I'm not going to go into a lot of explanation about that in this video. I'll link some other videos that explain it much better than I could right now, because I want to kind of keep this video short. But I hope that you'll watch those and get an idea of what you can do with your suffering that has so much incredible benefit, not just for you, but for others as well. Even if you can't leave your home, it's not about like taking your suffering and teaching other people or being able to relate to other people or anything like that. It's something that you just do in prayer, and then God does the rest. And it's just really, really amazing. But when we offer up our suffering, it gives us the opportunity. First of all, sometimes it helps the suffering to go away, especially if it's like emotional suffering. Not always, but sometimes. And at the very least, even if it doesn't make it go away, because like sometimes I offer up my pain. Like today, I have been in incredible physical pain, and offering that up hasn't made that go away, but it's given me a sense of purpose, which then gives me joy in that suffering. The other thing that I realized as I imagined myself bringing Jesus my suffering, I mean, here are the shepherds and they're bringing him, the little drummer boy, and they're bringing him sheep maybe, or just coming to worship him and adore him with that, which that in itself is something else that we can give him, is just to worship him and adore him. And but I imagined myself saying, here, Jesus, I'm giving you my suffering, do with it what you will. And I thought of all the suffering that he was going to go through in his life. And I thought, Jesus, I can stand in solidarity with you in that suffering. I won't experience your suffering the way that you do, obviously, but and my suffering compared to his is nothing. I've heard several priests talk about Jesus offering us a splinter of his cross. That's what our suffering is just a splinter from his cross. But think about being in solidarity with Jesus. Think about having that little tiny area that you're sharing with him, that little splinter of his cross. And imagine how holy that is. I was listening to a song on the way home from church tonight, and it was, it's a Gaither song. I'll link it below. It really cheered me up. But it talks about, Moses, take your shoes off. You're on holy ground. And I thought, I'm not sure what else is holy if our suffering isn't holy. And it's not just our suffering. We can suffer and it cannot be holy. But when we suffer well, when we suffer and we offer that up to him, when we suffer and we reunite our suffering with him, with his suffering, that's incredibly, incredibly holy ground. So I mentioned that I would talk a little bit about suffering well, about our ministry, suffering well. And I am going to have, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, what I'm saying, offering up our suffering or uniting our suffering with Christ, I'm going to link some videos below that you can check out about that. Not ones that I've done, but ones that other people have done who can explain it a lot better than them. But anyway, a friend and I are starting up a ministry for those who are suffering and who want to suffer well. And at this point, what we've just been doing is gathering really good videos about it. And so I'm going to put the link to our channel below so that you can check that out. You can check out all these videos from different people who are talking about it and everything. And eventually we're hoping to have like some groups, and some would be like in person, some would be on Zoom. So you could be anywhere in the world, and as long as you have decent internet, you could join us. And if you're watching this, you probably have decent internet, right? And there are some other things that we're going to be doing too that I don't really want to get into right now. But the whole point is that we want to be able to encourage each other in that suffering. I find a lot of times when I'm in really bad pain, like I am today, all I can think about is the pain. And I need somebody to say, offer that up, or unite that with Christ. My friend and I have a saying that we've kind of started saying to each other. This might sound kind of rude, but it kind of makes it fun. We say, offer it up, buttercup. and that kind of helps to remind us to offer that suffering up. And that this can be like emotional suffering, physical suffering, spiritual suffering, whatever kind of suffering. Maybe right now at Christmas, you're somebody who's alone. I've spent quite a few holidays alone since Bill died, and sometimes it's okay. Sometimes I've just needed to be alone with my grief, but other times I've felt very unwanted, because nobody wanted me. Nobody invited me. Nobody thought of that. And I'm not like upset at anybody about that or anything, because they had their family things and everything, but it's always nice to be wanted. And so that loneliness, I understand that, and I sympathize with you if that's what you're going through. But let me just say that is suffering that you can offer to the baby Jesus. And if you're alone, this is the perfect time for you to watch some of those videos and learn about the purpose for suffering and how important our suffering is to God. Did you know that he said that in the Psalms it says that God puts our tears in a bottle? That's oddly comforting to me. I'm not really sure why, but it is. And I think it was comforting to David, and that's why he wrote about that. So anyway, so I invite you to check out the videos that we've gathered so far, and let us know if you're interested in being a part of this, and then we can keep in touch with you. And when we get started with groups and stuff, then in classes and things like that, then we can let you know about that. And then we can also be encouraging you. It's just so important to be lifting each other up and to encourage one another to love and good works. All right. I love you all. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.